Black Box Radio. We are live. We are live. Our guest had some issues. I had some issues, so we on a little late, but I didn't want to hold it up, and he'll come in. This is the minister moment. But the first thing I want to do is say Happy New Year to everyone. We are 10 days in, and I just want to say Happy New Year from Black Box Radio. Hope everyone is have lofty goals and is on a path to greatness in 2023. This is Black Box Radio. We are a multimedia platform based in Baltimore, Maryland. And this is the Minister Moment. And we're in reflection at Black Box Radio. 2023 came in with a bang. And, we want to start with power. And power is getting free, is understanding that freedom is tangible, it's in the mind, and it's something that we all need. Freedom is a beautiful thing, and spirituality is a connection that can promote some type of freedom. And we want to talk about spirituality, we want to talk about freedom, we want to talk about just being great the whole year. This is the beginning, so let's start at the beginning and talk great. So last year we ended with the minister moment, and this year we're going to start with the minister moment. So I'm real excited about this series. We have the old, well, let's say a minister, because I can't say the word, Pastor Marvin McKenstry Jr. And it looks like he's coming in, and we have him as a guest. And I had some issue. He had some issues, but he's here with us. Hey,
how you doing? I'm trying to get the Black Box page right now so I can share this.
Do that. You are back. We are live. I had to go live because I didn't want to cancel the stream.
I know that's right.
But I definitely, I was just saying that, Black Box Radio is in reflection, and we're starting the year, and everyone's starting the year. It's 2023, and it's a beautiful thing, and you kind of feel renewed in some way. It's not like you really do anything different immediately, but you feel renewed in 2023 because it's a new year. And we want to, start in power. And last year we ended with the minister moment, and we ended the year. And this year I wanted to start it with the minister moment, and to kind of talk about freedom and spirituality and being great and all those things that at the beginning of the year is great, but we want to carry it all throughout the year. So we brought in a master, a master pastor.
Nah, I don't know about that. I'm still a rookie. I'm just 3 years in.
3 years in. Oh, well, you're dynamic. We got Marvin McKenstry Jr. Say hi to the people.
Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be here tonight. I told Madam Queen earlier today that I don't take for granted whenever somebody want to hear from me. I ain't that important or that special that people should want to. So it's a privilege and honor to be here. I thank you for the invitation. And I'm excited about the conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we are excited to have you here. It is always good to be in space with faith leaders in the community. They're so important to the viability of the Black community. They always have been very important to the viability. So we appreciate your service, and we want to hear your voice. But you always have your voice because you have a podcast, do you not?
Yeah. God
So
blessed us about two and a
yes,
half years ago now during the
yeah,
George Floyd conflict. I think it was the summer of 2020 or 2019, one of those. I think it was 2020 when the situation happened with George Floyd. Myself, brother named Sean Price, Ray Kelly, few of us that were instrumental, Stokey. We
mhm,
got together and said we were going to go live and talk about it. This was in the heart of the pandemic. People was home, didn't have much else to do. So we had over 1,000 people log on to that live broadcast. And we talked
really,
about how after 5 years after Freddie Gray, could we have a George Floyd? And it was some very passionate and intense conversation. And
hmm
people asked me, was I going to continue to do it? And I always said, as long as God made a way, meaning he allowed us to book quality content, because we not shock radio. We don't, we don't, as I say to people, we don't do the sexy conversation. We literally have content that's going to help somebody be better. And we're in kind of we have kind of revamped it a few times. My brother Shaka Pitts is an amazing producer. All I have to do is show up and sit there and talk. And he really takes care of all of the fun stuff with the stream yard and all of that. And now where we are, we do a 30-minute community segment. Like this coming Thursday, I'll be sitting down with former Mayor Sheila Dixon for 30
Oh,
minutes to talk about Baltimore, where we are, where we
okay.
going from her perspective. And then the second 30 minutes, we're going to be one of my favorite people, Dr. Kevin Daniels, who is a prophetic man of God,
Yes.
talking about what God's mandate is for believers. And believers kind of stretches apart across a broad spectrum of people um, for 2023 and what we need to do to be positioned to help Baltimore be better.
Hmm. And when you do this every Thursday?
Every Thursday at 6 p.m. Um, and it's fun. I like it.
So this is not particularly anything to do with religion or church based. It's more conversation and information for the people. Is it
Well,
both?
I'm so
Infusion?
it's both. It's
It's
both
both.
because I feel like it's the perfect example of fusion of who I am. Everybody know me. I'm one of those second chance guys. I went to prison very young, and I ain't talking about jail. I went to prison very young for some years, and I kept told God if He gave me a second chance at life, I would make good on it. So I've literally spent most of my adult life in the community, giving back, whether it's through my work that I do as a employee at the Mayor's Office of Employment Development, definitely in the space of being the pastor in the neighborhood where I did all my dirt and my damage. I grew up in Lexington Terrace Projects. My church is 2 blocks away from the neighborhood, so we do a lot of outreach and a
That's
lot of
what's
work
up.
there. Proudly celebrating, by the grace of God, 16 months with no murders in our neighborhood. Um, yep, we
Beautiful.
had one non-fatal shooting that didn't have anything to do with our neighborhood. So we
Beautiful.
proudly and godly proud to celebrate that. But it
Ooh,
talks about a little bit of both. Now, I do. It's very ecumenical because I do a lot of work with people who are I consider believers, but are not particularly of the Christian faith. I have brothers who I walk in these dark streets with that are from the Nation of Islam,
mm-hmm.
and we get on there and we chop it up because when I stood ground zero at the uprising and my years in the street, nobody asked you what your faith was.
Hmm.
you know, Murder don't ask you what your faith is. It just has a tendency to touch people who look like me. And when I say people who look like me, I mean black people. So if you black and you're about progress, we can work together. You may never step foot. Now, the brothers of the nation have been in my church. They come in there when it's time to celebrate my anniversaries and stuff like that. And I love them. And they have allowed me to come and speak in the mosque and all that sort of thing. But the common thread is we believe in a better Baltimore.
Yeah.
And if you're going to let religion keep you from working with somebody that's as passionate about change as you are, then you're part of the problem, not the solution.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. So you a part of the We Are Us movement
I'm one
also?
of the founding members,
Oh,
proud to be a part of the We Are Us movement.
that's
That
okay.
that first day, uh, I think 4 or 5 years ago now, was the coldest day they could have picked in a February. We launched out of St. Peter Claver Church, came down Pennsylvania Avenue to Pennsylvania and Lawrence. And the truth about our people in our community, it was people out there, as cold as it was.
Yeah.
I felt like I lost my mind just being out there. And still to this day, every Monday and every Saturday, we're in Baltimore in some community that's hurting and in need of resources. And I'm just honored to be a part of that group of men. I've seen mothers cry as this group of men come down the street. I've seen, people just thankful and grateful, celebrating God that the men finally raised up. And I always
Yeah.
say, I salute people like you because the women in Baltimore held it down for a long time. People like yourself and Mama B, and because we had too many differences between us as men. We struggle with pride.
Yeah.
So before there was ever a coming together of the men, there were so many queens like yourself that held it down. And I'm so grateful. But it is great to see the men
It is.
stepping up, standing up, and this movement through a pandemic and everything else have seen consistency. And I'm just honored to be a part of it.
All right. So you're definitely community entrenched. It's different. Some of the pastors I don't want to throw no shade on reverends, and they're not in the street. They're not in the communities. You know what I'm saying? They come in, they preach, and they go back out.
Yeah.
So it's important for us to, I think, our religious institutions, the leaders, to be present in the community. Don't you think?
Well, I think it's major because that's to this day one of the only things we own. We don't. It used to be a time when we owned the corner store or we owned the carry out or the restaurant. You know what? I think that pretty much the last thing standing that we actually own in the black community is the black church. And I got to be honest with you. There was a time in my life and my walk with God where I thought His deliverance was going to take me away from that, right? Because I
Mm,
come into the church, I get cleaned up, and God, like, nah, I brought you out to send you back. I tell people all the time, like, like Moses. Moses was raised in Pharaoh's house and he left Egypt in some trouble on the run. And God say, okay, now you cleaned up, I'm gonna send you back to what you came from, so that my people can be set free. And I wear it now as a badge of honor. I remember one day a few years ago, a young man who I grew up with his older brothers. We had a candlelight vigil for him. And after the candlelight vigil for him being murdered, I was in my car driving to what we call the other side of the bridge up near the Murphy Homes community because I
mhm.
was asked to come up and pray for another young man who had a vigil that day. And I found myself crying, like, God, I don't want this burden. It's too much death. It's too much of this, that, or the other. And yet I would feel empty if I didn't have it. I'm so grateful to God that He has cemented me. And when I say cemented, I don't believe there's a time when I won't be in the blackest of the black communities, doing what I love to do because that's where I got my second chance from. Um, and they love me and they receive me, and I love being the example. I think some of our communities are so decimated because people do better and they leave. They do better and they don't come back.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of this in religion and in faith spaces. You
Mhm.
go to prison, you find some form of religion, and you come home and you try to stay safe by staying away from everything that you left. God hasn't given me that privilege, even down to putting my church 2 blocks away from my old neighborhood. It's still in my neighborhood, but we not as close as I would want to be. But I'm grateful for it now because it allows me to serve where I did damage. It allows me to show change to people who need to see that you don't have to abandon the hood because life gets better.
Hmm. Yes. So I hear you're a Baltimore lover. You're Baltimore bred.
Man, listen, I still live in the city, work in the city, vote in the city. I don't drive in from Harford County to my job, to my church, and I ain't knocking nobody that do.
Uh-huh.
If I got $1 million, I would find me a plot of dirt in Baltimore and build the best home that I can for me and
Yep.
mine, and then take the rest of it and invest in some institution to try to make this city better. Because when I tell you my first interaction with law enforcement, I was about 12 years old, a kid on my way to school at Diggs Johnson Elementary. I mean, junior high school at that time.
Okay.
And I've been in the worst spaces and one of the contributors to what has made Baltimore its worst self. How
Mm.
can I, in good conscience, not be active and giving back and contributing? And I know people say it seems a little rough in the city, but I say, be the change that you want to see.
Huh.
Everybody can complain.
That's right. If you wanted to be better, come make it better.
That's what you got to do.
That's right. I'm here toiling in the city with you, brother. I get it. We
I
got it.
know
We got to
that's
be
right.
in the city. We got to be in Baltimore proper.
Absolutely, we got to.
You got to. You got to for sure. Listen, so we're going to segue into, what we're going to talk about some freedom and building and being great and capturing the moment and living and being outstanding. So what do you think when it comes to spirituality? How does it seep into our lives when it comes to achievements and being a better person? Because a
So
lot of us are not. I'm sorry. I want to kind of give you some context. A lot of us aren't going to particularly church. A lot of us aren't extending ourselves out to a institution, but we have this thirst for connection and spirituality and that type of freedom.
I think it stems to understanding our creation. Most faith uh, groups and most people, for that pet matter, except the Pentateuch, the Torah, the first five books, and the account of creation. I'm not one that believe we are spawned out of two people, Adam and Eve, but God's account of creation to tell us how He created says that He took what was clay and made this flesh that I live in, but the life that He breathed into me was His spirit, right? Even if we're people from the African diaspora, there's no us without spirituality, right? So that hunger and that thirst is there. And I believe most people who in this generation are not ascribing to a particular institution is because the institution and its lack of self accountability has become a huge turnoff to many people, because at its core, we don't recognize that the basic gathering of people for the edifying, the growth, and development of our spiritual selves um, is supposed to trump the character based, personality driven, superstar, mega personality ideology of the modern faith movement, whether that's the church or some other institution. And
Okay.
people who are craving some essence of spirituality want to get back to the basics. We
Hmm.
want to get away from celebrating pastor so and so or imam such and such and that
Yeah.
exalted sense of being, because we know that that's not right. We know that there's something in us that says, no, that ain't right. And for those that have fallen into that way and into that space, I tell people all the time, I'm normally the strongest person in most spaces. I don't need nobody carry my bag. I don't. You know, I love the historical context of the Bible and some other early writings and how it's helped a person like me who dropped out of high school because I went to prison very young and didn't have a sense of my self awareness or my personal identity to rediscover who I was, not in the context of my race or anything. I had to go pursue that in a different way, but in the sense of what God intended in creation when He said, let me make a man, let me make a Marvin in my own image and in my own likeness, right? I said, wow, I was made in the image and likeness of God. I'm not supposed to be living this way or doing
Hmm.
it this way, right? I'm not
Right.
supposed to be abusing myself in this way. I'm not supposed to be doing things this way. And then He said I was supposed to have dominion. I can't be broken, have dominion.
Mm.
Well, I got to be able to take care of me and what I'm responsible for if I'm going to have dominion. A dominion person is a person that's in charge, a person that has command, not over people, but over your own life.
Mm.
We have too many people that are ready to command groups of others, but has not mastered those things that are destructive within themselves. So for me, I'm a very uh what do I call it? I'm a very self-examining person when it comes down to faith and spirituality.
Okay.
Not what that Bible says to y'all or says about y'all, but what is it trying to tell me about me? What do
Mm.
I need to be to contribute not only to my own health and welfare, but to the health and welfare of my people, right?
Right.
So, these spaces have been designed to be institutions of learning. Now they've become show places with a lot of charismatic stuff, and people don't want, because it's not going to help you understand who you are or what the plan and purpose in God is for your life, right? So I believe that it's time for us to get back to the basics. Now, one of the things that I'm clear on is I'm a pastor people that's never going to come in my church. When I'm down on the 800 block of Lexington Street and some of them youngins are out there, some of them other folks are out there, they may never step foot in my church. I got to do my work right there. They may never step foot in my church. And I'm okay with that. I'm not going to only exclusively bring what I've been gifted to bring to the world inside the four walls of the space that I have a congregation. My
Okay.
congregation is way bigger, right?
Right.
Because my message is simple. Given a chance, God can change anything if he could change a bum like me.
Wow.
And that's what I think. I think the world wants to get back to the basics. I think people want it to be okay um, to come into a space. We always say come as you are.
Mm-hmm.
People want to be able to come into a space. I got young men in my church smell like weed every Sunday. I don't ask these young brothers to take their hat off when they come in my church. I don't have a prescribed dress code when people come in my church. I can tell you how many times people have told me when they get themselves together, they gonna come. Don't nobody tell the doctor I'm gonna come see you when I get healed.
Hmm.
I'm coming sick because I believe my healing is there. And we've set such a standard, even in the outfits that we wear. Now, that's a nice suit I got on right there. But that don't set the tone for my. You come in my church, you're gonna see people dressed all kinds of ways. You'll see me in a hoodie of some jeans and a pair of Timbs because those things that we've exalted above the idea that this is a place where all people are welcome is what the problem is. You ain't got
Mm-hmm.
to come in there because you agree with me. If we come and reason together long enough, we might find a point of agreement that'll help us both be better. So we got to tear down a lot of the religiosity of the institution. And I'm not one of those that batter or abuse religion because there's some things I do religiously, which simply means to do it with repetition. The scary part of religion is you could do it with repetition and lose the life that's in it, lose the spiritual context of it, lose the humanity that you should have towards the rest of the world. You'll never catch me arguing and debating with somebody. You'll always see me applying love. You'll always see me telling the person that the most important thing is that they understand that I love them. That's the first thing you'll receive. In my years serving this city, I worked with a ton of young people. And people always ask me, man, you could go to them young people and say things that I know I couldn't go and say because I have a relationship. I didn't walk up to them with a Bible. I walked up to them and said, "Hey man, what's your name? How you doing?" Yeah, and then I shared my testimony. I tell them that at 16 years old I was in adult prison. I tell them that I've been shot and I shot people. I tell them that I've been the worst of the worst.
Mm-hmm.
So it's relative. We can relate in context and still to this day who I am as a leader because
Yeah.
I is one who believes that you lead by relationship. If I don't know you, I can't lead you. I don't want to lead nobody by authority. I read in the Bible where it says have no rule, let no man have rule over you. I don't want to authoritatively rule you, tell you what you need to do enough. I want to love you to the degree that you're willing to come and see my example.
Hmm. So the church has so the community. The community is an entity that is free. So the church, you're saying that the church should foster a space where people want to come.
We have to get to that place to
Mm-hmm.
where I, I'm completely uncomfortable with the idea that I'm going to be in church with a bunch of quote unquote church people. Why am I talking to the same group every week? Why
Mm-hmm.
aren't the people who believe that? Listen, when I was young, if we found a good bag of weed, we told you who had that fire. Go up there and see them boys on North and Lawn. They got that, yeah, right?
Right.
So how is it that I'm gonna be in Christ, in the church, in whatever space I'm in, and I really feel as though it's blessing my life, but I ain't telling nobody about it. I
Mm.
ain't bringing nobody to what's making me better. One of my sons, he's 23 years old, and he just ventured his way back into the church. He's found his niche he's in charge of like our streaming. He found something that gives him purpose in it. He loves being there with his pops and all of that. He said to me, "Man, I be trying to get all my friends to come. They just ain't coming." I said, "Listen, all you gotta do is keep on living. When they see how it's doing something in your life and you give them some example of what it can be for them, then they gonna come. We don't argue and fight. You ain't got to tell nobody go to social service that need help. Social service packed out. I used to work over there. They packed out
Every day.
every day for somebody, and that's that. But that says something.
That's the truth,
If
though.
the help, if you know you're gonna get what you need when you get there, ain't nobody gotta tell you come.
What? You gonna find out how to get there and be
So
on
if
time.
what if you ain't coming to my church, it's not incumbent upon me to beat you down about going to hell. It's for me to examine what is it that I'm doing over here that you don't see value in. You
Mm.
don't believe this is really going to help you, right? So it's so different than because I'm responsible to run that institution. You start a 501c3. You the dude that run the rec center. You have a responsibility to make that a viable institution towards its constituents. Pastoring is no different. We have allowed the faith leader to be this exalted being. That's never been God's design. And Jesus, if you're a follower of Christ like I am, he never did that within himself. He never made himself an exalted being. I told my leaders last week, we don't we're not in place because we called. We're in place because somebody got a need. That I'm called stuff is another thing to make us feel special, feel good about ourselves. No, I'm here because somebody got a need. As long as I keep the need first, if I'm really paying attention, it's going to remind me of the time when I had a need. It's going to
Mm.
keep me humble. And that's what I think we need to do. If we want people to really be able to explore spirituality, we can't be so staunch that we can't be asked the difficult questions. One of the people in my church came to me and said, "Well, Pastor, I got some friends that's gay. Where do we stand as a church on the LGBTQ community? We got to answer this question when marijuana get legal. Pastor,
Mm. That's next.
they legalize marijuana. Them people that you've been putting
Society is
down,
changing the
they-
church,
if society,
and technology is changing the church.
is changing, um, is changing, is changing the questions,
There you go.
and we have to go back to the foundational word of God to be able to provide answers with integrity. Answers with integrity. My young people can go on YouTube, LinkedIn, I mean, not LinkedIn, YouTube, Google, and find out. I can't lie to them about stuff that I know is a lie that was lied to me about, but because it's tradition, I'm going to keep up the lie.
Hmm.
They got access to go research and find out. So I
Yeah.
got to bring some integrity to
Yeah.
it. Even if the integrity is, I got to get back to you on that. I don't have an answer for that one. And it's got to be okay. I think people who see your humanity believes that they can fit into the space that you're in. If my shoes become so big that a person can't see themselves filling them or walking in them or wearing them, then they ain't gonna come be where I'm at. And I'm passionate and adamant with people because when I came home from prison, and I found my way into the very church that I pastor, and God through time did everything from help me get my education, gave me a career that I wasn't qualified for, changed completely my financial situation and my ability to take care of my life through the teaching of the principles and the changing of my character and all of that sort of thing so that I could be a person of integrity and live to a certain standard. I want everybody that believes that there's better to be able to experience that. But I got to go and give them the side of me that they may have never seen before.
Mm.
That part where I came from here to get there. And the part where it still ain't easy now. I'm a 48-year-old pastor with no wife.
Ooh,
The struggle is real.
it's real. No help me.
It's real. I want a wife. I've literally got a book coming out. It's called From Hiding to Healing. And it talks about how being a young man coming in the institution of the church from being a drug dealer, violent person, went to prison and all of that. I literally took everything, every gift God gave me, every opportunity, every position I had to build a mask. And one of my favorite sayings is achievement money, popularity, and success does not equate healing. I can gain a whole bunch of stuff and be the most broken endowed dude out here. I
Wow.
got money, I got position, I got success, people calling my name, and I'm still broken because what we need to do in the space of healing, when you come
Mm,
through the trauma that I've been through, when you come from what I've been, when you come out of generational poverty and other issues, you got to take time to sit still and allow whatever form of faith or spirituality, for me, it's God in Jesus Christ, to do the necessary intimate work of healing. You don't get healed without confession. You can't
mm,
live a lie and give access to God to be able to fix what's in there. I
wow.
believe in total transparency. I believe in making sure, not that I just want to put all my business in the street, but this book is going to tell a lot.
Ooh.
It's going to talk about how I was a young man in my early teens with access to crack cocaine because I was selling it, sleeping with women twice my age because they had a habit. And my introduction to human sexuality was rooted in situations like this, and how
Wow.
I have six biological children, all with different mothers, because I had a twisted sense of what I was supposed to be to the woman and what she was supposed to be to me. How I loved my grandmother, loved my daughters, but could manipulate women with the best of them because of what was broken in me. How I had to go
Mm,
on a campaign of apology to different women because I never had a good intention by 'em.
mm.
People don't want to have that conversation. I tell people all the time, you come in my church, hear me preaching like that, you offended. My church ain't the one for you. But I'm not going to stay sick. And the people that trust God for me to be their leader are not going to get some watered down version of what it really means to be changed. What God ain't changed me. He keeps me in the streets. What he did is he fixed the broken places like my character. He worked on me and gave me a conscience to not keep being the biggest liar out here. Gave me some integrity, dealt with words like being honorable and things of that nature, right? This
Right.
is what it's really about. It ain't about, because I can dress up and be a whole dressed up mess.
That's the truth. That is the
Yeah.
truth.
Sat down with my daughter's mom and told her, I said, I ain't do right by you. And I'm
Mm,
sorry. You
wow.
you was you're a great woman. You would make an amazing. I didn't do right by you.
Wow.
Because that's the truth. When you sit down and you do some real self examination, what are you weighing these God principles against? I'm looking at this book and saying, am I what God says I'm supposed to be? And I got to be honest with myself. In so many spaces, I have not been that. Now, there were some things I fixed a long time ago, and there were some things that I'm still working on fixing today. If I can't be the quote unquote pastor because I'm honest about that, I still got work to do, go find you another church.
Wow. Okay. I love pastors because y'all talking paragraphs. I love
I don't never get to be the guest. I normally the one sitting there ask the question and gotta be quiet till they finish.
so I really love that. I love how you guys speak in paragraphs. Listen, let me ask you a question. When it comes to Baltimore
Mhm.
and the things, Baltimore is a beautiful city. I love Baltimore. But it's a lot going on in Baltimore. It's a lot of violence in Baltimore. There's a lot of decay in Baltimore. There's a lot of great stuff in Baltimore. How do people feel free in Baltimore in 2023? How are we going to turn this thing around where everyone can access the greatness of Baltimore, not just in the White Owl or in certain spaces in Baltimore City?
Well, I think it's important that we look at what you just said, right? Because I don't say that there's a lot of crime and violence and decay in Baltimore. I say it's a lot of crime, violence, and decay in the black community,
That's it.
right? There are
Wow,
areas in Baltimore where you never see it. And then when it
that's
does
so true.
happen, they surprise. It's nothing like watching the news with they twist itself reporting on a murder down in Federal Hill where they want everything in the world to stop. And our elected officials a lot of times aren't any better,
Yep.
because I remember a few years ago, we was having a murder every 5 minutes
Ooh,
in the black community. We ain't
ooh,
see no politicians showing up at these visuals. Somebody got killed down in Federal Hill. Eric Costello put one call out. You had every elected official in Baltimore at the candlelight vigil, right? We can't not act like that disparity is not a reality in this city. But
Yeah.
to answer your question, how you can feel free, you can literally search yourself internally and figure out what it is that you can do to contribute to the change. Now,
That's
I tell people all the time, um,
that's
don't
it.
think that what God has me doing is what God is going to have you doing.
Absolutely.
There's no sense of competition, right?
Hmm.
If if my call is to save 1,000 and yours is to call save two, just do what God called you to do. But stop taking yourself out of the game, feeling as though you don't have anything to offer.
That's
Yours may not be to go and walk the streets at night. It may be to get that little dude down the street who your son, you don't like your son hanging with because he ain't got no daddy like you, the daddy, and take both of them to the basketball court or the
absolutely.
basketball. Be a fatherly presence in the space of that person. I remember I used to hear preachers talk about praying drug dealers off their corner. You want to pray them off the corner instead of going down to the corner and telling them about this God that you say is all powerful. Like if we want to feel like we our best selves, we have got to get involved and
Yes.
understand that your level of involvement is not somebody else's level of involvement. It's okay if yours is if me, I'm known for getting people jobs because I worked over 20 years in the mayor's office of employment development.
Yep.
Yours may not be getting hundreds of people jobs. It may be just making sure that them little nephews and cousins that need something different to do know when you're job hiring and you talking to your manager to make sure they get a chance,
Yep.
right? Instead
Right.
of, man, I ain't putting my name on them. You won't put your name on them because of what they are when really you the gateway to what they can become.
Mm.
This is how we feel free and how we feel great. Why can I walk any and every community in Baltimore and do it without fear? Because I've helped somebody in every neighborhood. I've
Mm.
helped somebody in just about every neighborhood. This freedom that I have is because when you start talking about freedom in this context, this freedom is because I don't owe anybody anything. I don't. I don't owe the person that I was supposed to give an opportunity to. I made sure I did that. I don't owe the person that I'm walking down the street and I see them in whatever condition or space that they in, and it's in my heart to do something with them or for them. I don't owe them because I do it. I don't owe them when I'm compelled to go in
Mm.
my pocket and give them some money because I'm worried about what they're going to do with the money once I give it to them. I don't owe them that.
You
I'm
know.
not going because the only real debt we carry is regret.
Whoa.
That's the only real debt that we carry is regret.
It's regret. Wow.
You do not want to go to your grave. You do not want to get into a space where you no longer have opportunity to do what you should have did and chose not to do.
Straight like that.
You
You're
don't.
right.
You don't. You want to sit there, and I'm telling you because I know what it's like to be burdened down when you know it was something you should have did and you chose not to do it.
Hmm.
For whatever reason, could have been fear, could have been the not knowing how, could have been anything. I've made up my mind that I'm just going to be loose and free. I confessed to somebody today that for a while I didn't want them involved with me in ministry because I was worried about what people was going to say.
Really?
Because that's that I'm on the truth campaign. I'm on a campaign right now where the healing that's going to take place and the progress in spaces where God has given me charge and put me in leadership, it's going to happen because I bring some integrity. I look somebody in the eye and say, I ain't want you here because I was worried about what people was going to say and think. I literally didn't come and do what I believe that we could have done because of this situation or because of that. Because that's what my maturation is about. It's not about personally enriching me. It's about being able to shatter all those glass ceilings that I put above me that's hindering me from being as great. Because the question was about greatness.
Yeah.
I hold the key to my greatness by challenging myself to be greater. No matter how many the dilapidated buildings in a community, how much crime is happening in the community. I came out of Lexington Terrace projects, and I could name a whole bunch of brothers that came right from that place. Some of us made the worst of decisions. Some of us went to prison for a few years, others went to prison for over 20 years. And now
Mm.
we have formed this organization called the Lexington Terrace 9, where we fixing what we broke. And they
Really?
all great men. One of them runs the Mac Lewis gym. One of them got a few 18-wheeler trucks, and he's giving opportunities and jobs to brothers. We literally last year, um, I was honored with a
That's
citation
beautiful.
from an organization. They got a mayor's citation, and I was deemed the pastor of the year. While people
Beautiful.
were dressed up at the ceremony, guess where I was at? I was in Curl Park. Why? The week before, all of the younger generation of guys played us in the softball game. And where we grew up in rec centers and learned the fundamentals of sports, they never learned it. It was hilarious because they didn't know the basic rules. We beat the brakes off them that week before. The night that they were honoring me somewhere
Uh-huh.
in Cockeysville, I think it was Cockeysville, to be the pastor of the year and all this old other stuff.
Hmm.
I sent a thank you text. I was in Carroll Park with them young men, uh, doing what made somebody think I was pastor of the year. I was down there with them playing softball because they wanted their revenge, and I set the priority not on being rewarded, but doing the thing that made somebody think I deserved it. It's a whole, and I ain't mad at nobody. I don't want nobody to think I'm mad. It's a whole bunch of celebrations and a whole bunch of other things, and we still got over 300 murders.
That's what I'm
I
saying.
don't believe we shouldn't. I don't think it's a problem with honoring effort, right? But
Right.
I'm sitting here believing that the change is gonna come. And I want to be, you can talk to, when we get under 300, then holla at me. When we get down back down to 200, where we were just in my lifetime under Mayor Dixon's leadership, then talk to me. Let's throw a cookout. But until then, let's continue to do the work, because my greatness ain't attached to what people say about me or how they exalt me. It's about how a young person named Kenny throughout school had people put labels on him, what he wasn't going to be, and all that. And he's been one of my sons in my church since he was, Kenny was young. Kenny had to be 6 or 7 years old, when he first came into our church. Kenny is thriving at Morgan State University, was a standout in high school and ROTC, has defied every label that they tried to put on him. And I had the privilege of mentoring and being a father figure to him. That's the measuring tool for me.
Mm.
Not whether you give me a certificate or not.
Wow.
That's what helps me when I look at him, and when I look at Jonte getting ready to get his license, and he's on his way to college next year. These guys that had every disadvantage because they quote unquote came from the single parent household, and all of the things that was supposed to mean they wasn't going to be nothing. And I see them being great. And I had a little something to do with that. That's how we be great in this
That
day and this
is.
time. I was at Morgan State University one
That's
day,
it.
and I know I'm talking in paragraphs again. There was a young lady that was there, and she was just disgusted. When we got to the conversation about the current condition of young black people in Baltimore. I mean, this was a sister, and she went off.
Mm.
And I asked her a question: What do you see when you look in the mirror?
Mm.
What do you see? Do you see something other than a black woman? Other than somebody that used to be a black girl? I don't know if you got kids, but do you see something other than the image of that same black mother that has to bury their child? If I see all of that in me, it compels me to
Mm.
go and to help somebody or to do something, not to sit around and talk down on the people that's in the condition that God rescued me from.
So I mean, I hope the black box has got that. The jewel is create something, be something, give yourself, because the only way to change Baltimore, it starts with you. There's no systematic change. We got to start waiting for somebody to do it and do it.
Man, we went
That's the
from
jewel.
we went from a call to social justice, because everything to do with criminality and
Hmm.
policing and all of that was rooted in racism, to celebrating somebody coming in the state's attorney's office who's outright saying, I'm gonna lock them up, y'all sort them out later.
What did
I
we
ain't
do
got nothing
this?
against the brother, But because I ain't got nothing against him.
Me neither, but I
We
don't like that
saw
stance.
we saw our previous state's attorney acquiesce to becoming a social justice warrior because after 2015's uprising, it seemed like that was the flavor of the month for black community and black leaders. Now that the crime is overwhelming, we vilified her
Yep,
when all she did was responded to our appetite, and we ready to now switch back over to this legalism and stuff like that that
yeah,
has not done nothing but made our communities worse for years. I
absolutely.
don't blame the political figures. It's the
Yep,
flavor of the
blame
month
them too.
mentality from our community. We have not made a solid stance on what's important. Are we going to end racism, or are we going to take up the mantra of fighting crime? Which one are we going to do and stick with?
Well, Pastor Marvin, there's a lot of nuances to that because you have a well a well financed media that tells you that you're not good enough, that has no problem with demeaning who you are. So when you list all of the things that come from this media is what you see people doing. It's the acculturated movements of people.
Can
So
and
now we go back to patrol and control. And so because that's all we know. So we following what daddy say. That's what daddy's comfortable at,
mm,
unfortunately.
let me tell you what my issue with that is. And I had this conversation with somebody last week, right?
Right.
The people who are under 40, the people who are in the demographic that's out there in the mix, they're not letting the media dictate to them who they are because they stream everything.
Hmm.
The people who literally are in the 40 and older bracket, who do stuff like me, drive listening to talk radio and still watch and find some value in TV news, we're the ones watching that. And how's that hindering us? Because we're the elders that can bring real change to our community, but we've allowed the narrative of the media to take us over. They ain't taking them young people over because they stream life. They not watching Fox 45.
They're not.
They
And
ain't
we
watching
should be.
Fox 45.
That's right. They're not.
They're trying to live into what they're streaming, whether it's the music videos, whatever it is. They're trying to live into the idea that's being streamed into them. The great buffer is us
And we're so culturated, we don't. They're like sick of us because we're not
because
filling their cup.
we approach them. Now I'm gonna tell you the truth. Let's talk squeegee. I have never had a negative interaction with a squeegee worker, whether I had money for them or not. Now, there's some nuances to that because I do believe that there's kind of a predatory nature to some of the approach that you have with women and things of that nature. But ultimately, I believe that what you put out is what you get back. If you'd have allowed Sinclair Broadcasting Group to feed a narrative to you that they are the worst thing in the streets and you respond to them that way, they're gonna respond to you. I'm
Absolutely.
not saying it's nobody's fault, but don't get out your car. Definitely don't get out your car with a bat. I'm a black man that's courageous enough to say, don't get out your car. Don't get out your car with a bat. I watch so-called black leaders never called out the error of the victim because it ain't politically correct.
Hmm.
I ain't saying that man deserved to die. I'm just saying you heighten your chances when you get out your car. You heighten them even further when you get out with a bat.
That is the first act of violence is getting out your car with a bat.
I'm not trying to say that the man was supposed to die, but I'm not going to
I'm
sit
not
here
saying that now.
and watch this young black man on trial, right? And not call out all the facts.
Yeah.
This is the issue with our community. When you say that, you're essentially saying if your child is at the basketball court and he has a disagreement and somebody comes and approach him with a bat, it's okay.
It's not.
It's not. Now, again, I'm gonna keep saying, I'm not saying that that man should have been shot or should have died.
We are not saying that. We're just saying the action has a reaction.
And we've got to make sure that this is why this generation don't respect us. That's why they don't respect so-called black leaders because we won't tell the truth, the
Mm-hmm.
whole truth. We won't do it. And those of us that choose to do, they got a lot of love for.
Hmm. Wow. That's something else. We're not telling the truth. That's another jewel.
Yeah, I mean, when you approach these young people with some integrity, right? Even if you're not comfortable, say, hey, this is new for me, but I really want to help you. I think I can help you. I think that there's an opportunity for you, or there's a chance. I got sons that wear their pants sagging. I got sons that wear the cruddy. I got sons. I'm talking my biological son. They go to work every day, pay their own bills, don't live in my house. They grown men out on their own. Their fashion statement can be a death sentence,
Yeah,
not because of the police, but because we not gonna hold the police accountable for still stereotyping and profiling our boys.
that's it.
I said it earlier. How do you have a George Floyd 5 years after Freddie Gray? Because ain't nothing changed.
And nothing changed. It is embedded in the fabric of America, but we gotta definitely work on that. And part of working on that is equipping our young people to understand the traps.
That I believe that that's the greatest work, whether it's your own children, those that are in your household, then extended to those that are in your community. We have such a protect, and don't get me wrong, because I believe it's integral to take a protector's mindset. I'm gonna protect my child so my child don't become a victim. It's not a negative way of being, but I can protect my child and still be the opportunity that that other child needs in order to see to it that that my child that I've been protecting ain't taken out by the one that I wouldn't help. I
Hmm.
knew all my son's friends. They used to call me Daddy Daycare when my grown sons were little. Call me Daddy Daycare. Why? Because everybody, all the single mothers in their circle, dropped all their kids off at my house. So these boys got a dose of manhood, even if it was just for a weekend, because I made myself available. I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm talking about the little things. If you know me as this great activist and all that, nah, sleepovers because
That's
I
what's
had
up.
sons.
I love, bruh. You laying all the jewels out here.
Yeah, because it's the little things. My grandmother used to fry chicken, and her fried chicken was just famous, amazing, everything.
Of
I
course.
remember going all the way back to when I was a kid and we was living in the po homes, how we had people that would pull up and give her 25 cents for a piece of fried chicken or whatever.
She was making some money back in the day.
These are the things that literally built the necessary relationships so people in the community knew who I was because it was my grandmother that sold the fried chicken or my grandmother that made the sweet potato pies. Look at this is what the real essence of our rec center situation is. When I was young, I played for Lexington Terrace Rec Center. All my sports were there in my neighborhood. I knew the Sandtown CBS dudes because they played at Lillian Jones. I knew the Murphy Holmes dudes because they played at Robert C. Marshall. I knew the Park Heights dudes because they even played at Tawanda, J.D. Gross, C.C. Jackson. So what literally happened, we met at the bowl up in Druid Hill Park, and we played football against each other. So when we got older and we were men out here, we didn't have to kill each other because our acquaintance was made in BNBL basketball. Our acquaintance was made playing football for our neighborhood recreation
Y'all
center.
know
So
each other.
when you
Yeah.
closed up the recreation centers, you shut down a vehicle for me to get from my neighborhood to somebody else so that my network was broadened and I didn't have to have an enemy.
Wow. So it has social implications. It has generational implications.
Generational, social, all
So
of that.
oh my goodness, when you really look at that, it was a connector. It was a connector for folk and
Mhm.
for, from other places to know where, you come from, and healthy competition where you don't have to kill each other and get angry and understand how to deal with conflict,
I
and,
was sitting in my barber shop 8 o'clock in the morning. I go 8 o'clock every Saturday. And a dude walked in and I recognized him. I had one of those kinds of brains. I remember faces and stuff. I said, yo, you play football? He said, yeah. I said, where you play your youth ball at? He said, I played for Lillian Jones. I said, man, I played at Lexington Terrace. I remember you. You was the nose tackle. Blah, blah, blah. And started telling him stuff. 35 years later.
Look at that.
Because we had that acquaintance and that interaction.
That's
So
social currency right there.
when you took the rec center and
Yeah.
started shutting it down, and now everybody go to their area of choice to play for this team, and these young people ain't
Yes.
growing up like that.
That
They not
kills the
meeting that
social
guy.
currency.
Yeah. I
Wow.
named
I
every
never
I,
thought of it.
I named every quote unquote hood. If you was from the village,
Yep.
you played for Murray E. Rodman.
Yeah,
If
you
you was
named it
from
all.
Baltimore and Hilton, you played for Hilton Rec. All of these places had varying athletics and sports programs that allowed me to meet my peers. So when I ran into them later, I knew who they were. They knew who I was.
That's something to say. Connection, the connection of what it brings to the city,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody can't live around each other, but you can connect
Mm-hmm. That
through
6 degrees of
sports, through healthy
separation that we talk about.
competition. Yeah. Oh man. Okay. I love that. So, we 55 minutes in. This is a beautiful conversation. Pastor, I thank you so much.
I
But
thank you for having me.
I'm not ready to go. I want to ask you: do you believe in numerology or the science of numbers?
Absolutely, it's biblical.
It's
So
biblical.
there's so many disciplines. What they now call the zodiac and astrology and numerology, all that stuff is biblical.
It is.
There's a perfect numeric science to everything that you see in the earth, which is supportive of the existence of a divine being and creationism. Evolution says that there's some gas ball that started putting all this perfection. If you just look at the way that we eat and we free ourselves of what we eat later in the bathroom, that is too intelligent a system for it to be the result of some happenstance.
Okay, so I love that. So numerology is biblical. You understand it. So when I look at 2023, 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 plus 3 is 7. 7 is a number, they say, of completion. It's a spiritual number. So as 2023 is here. What do you foresee? What do you when it comes to from a spiritual aspect? What should people work on? What do you see this
So
2023 being?
I literally said on Sunday to my church while I was teaching that I don't believe that 2023 has great implications for a God who lives outside of time. God is sovereign. He lives in what we call kairos, right? That's the Greek word for eternity. We live in chronos. Time was given to us because we need a system of management. I believe alignment with God at any time, whether it's January or December, whether it's 2022 or 2023, produces God's results because God can't lie. His system is do it my way, get my results, right? So the focus now, I believe that this is a time of greater access. And what I mean by greater access and availability, I personally, y'all don't shoot me down, don't believe that we live in a time where man provokes miracles. I believe that in this dispensation that we live in, according to what I read in the Word of God, miracles are the divine providence of God to perform. He's given us a system that if we live in context of the system, then we get the results that we're supposed to get. The ability to manage and be a good steward over my opportunity to breathe God's air or to live. What I do today is going to literally determine what tomorrow looks like. He said, if you sow to the spirit, you reap of the spirit. You sow to the flesh, you reap of the flesh. It's a system in place that if a person like me, who literally had the tumultuous testimony that I've lived through, where my father was a heroin addict and I didn't have him in my home and just about everything else stereotypical that you could say was literally my lot. I don't tell people that was, it was a time when that was my testimony because it was popular and it got Georgia empathy. When did my life change? When I changed my choices.
Mhm.
When I choose, right? When I choose with integrity, when I choose with principle, because the Bible is a book of principle. We sit back and we let people debate all day long the validity. The Bible has stories that are allegory, which means they're not actual stories. They're designed to make a point. We have some stuff that's factual history. People can sit back and debate that all the time. The thing that you can't do is debate the universal law or principle that's rooted in what's being said. That if you sow, you're going to reap. Whether that's in
Mm,
agriculture, whether it's in human relationships, that's a principle. So if we focus less on the things, the minutia and the things that we like to argue about, and we get back to the understanding that principled living produces a principled life, we ain't got to struggle with what 2023 is going to bring. We ain't got to struggle with 2023 is going to be or not going to be. I believe personally right now, I literally believe that poverty is a system that the only way you beat it is you refuse to participate with the system.
mm,
The amount of subsidies that a person in an impoverished situation can get and live by, if they fall into a space where they believe that that's good living, they'll be impoverished forever, and there'll be generations of of poverty in their family. I'm a curse breaker. None of my children became teen parents like I was. None of my children have been to prison. None of my children dropped out of high school. I chose strategically to do some things different as a man. One of those things is be present as a father. My
mm.
father wasn't present as a father. I love my dad. My dad is my guy. I'm not vilifying him, right? But my dad, because of his addiction, let me put it that way, so it
Yeah.
ain't an assault on his character. Because he was arrested by addiction, he wasn't present. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna be present as a father. So all of my children have done things differently than what I chose to do because I chose to live a different example. Nothing miraculous about that. As I
Hmm.
got a hold of the principles, the ideology, the thought process of God, the understanding of what God intended versus what I was choosing before, it completely changed my life. Completely changed my life.
Pastor
Changed the
Marvin, you
way
got
I'm
to say that
thinking about
again. You said when you change your choices,
it.
what
It
you say?
changed my life.
Wow.
As long as I was choosing to participate with the system of poverty, to participate, you know, some of those things that we do, stealing cable, cheating on your taxes, all these kinds of things. Because I don't want y'all to think I'm talking about the big stuff. You know, we have a tendency to categorize these things. So, and all categorizing does is it makes what I'm doing, what you doing, worse than what I'm doing, so I feel better about me. Now, my measuring tool is what I see in that mirror. It's what I
Mm,
see in that mirror. And I'm honest with myself about the places and the areas where I'm still working on me. I'm not perfect. I'm striving for perfection. I'm trying to be perfect biblically means to mature. It doesn't mean to achieve this sense of being where all is well and nothing is wrong, because I'll get to an element of wisdom where my brain has evolved to this greater place and my body start to break down with age. Literally, what I choose determines what I get.
mm,
If I choose to live a principled life according to the principles of God's word, to do it his way, then I get God's results. We do everything to contradict the prayers that we pray. We pray that the city get better, but won't go out and do nothing to make it better.
that's it. Say it again. That's it.
We pray the drug dealer, or we want to pray the drug dealer off our corner, but won't go tell him our job hiring.
Ah, will not and won't help.
Principled, principled. My character got better. My character changed. My character. And we
Straight
don't even
back.
use words like that no more. We don't use words. You still at any given time will see me in some jeans, some Jordans, and a hoodie, but I'm a different man wearing that uniform than I used to be. Not because of the uniform itself, but because of what I'm going to do and what I'm intended on producing as a man.
Mm. Minister Marvin. Pastor Marvin, this has been a pleasure. Listen, this is what I wanted to do. Black Box Radio is bringing power for the first month of January. So you're the beginning of the power. You're like the power pellet, the spark. So you brought in all this power this evening, and I so appreciate your voice and what you're doing in the community. I knew you were dynamic, but you are amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing. I just, oh my goodness, I feel inspired. I really, really appreciate the power you brought tonight. I would love for you though is to like affirm 2023. Give us a short word on 2020. Affirm it for us so we all can be bright and great through this year.
In 2023, you have been given the privilege of not dying in 2022.
Yes,
That's powerful.
power.
I believe that power is an opportunity. There's a scripture that says, um, for as many as received him, gave them the power to become. That means opportunity. If you're breathing, you have opportunity.
Mhm.
Make up your mind that in 2023, you'll examine your 2022 because we want, Old Lang Syne, that song wants to teach us to forget about the last year. No, examine the previous year at
Oh,
every point of missed opportunity and make up your mind that you're not going to miss that opportunity again. Life itself is a privileged opportunity that you have to do more than what you did before. The real power lies in things that we can control. Stay out of the system of poverty. If you get an opportunity to gain wealth, apply that wealth in the right places and not the wrong places. I talk to people all the time about simple things. You get in an accident, fender bender, your car, they send you a check to get your car fixed. You riding around with duct tape because you didn't take that money and get your car fixed. You took it and you did something else. Tax season is approaching. This year, don't spend your tax money before you get it. Really examine what your needs are and don't allow that 5 minutes of rich. I'm talking about practical stuff. Don't
5
allow
minutes
that
of it.
5 minutes of rich
Real
to
talk.
cause you to live the rest of the year in a worse situation than you were before you got that money.
Real talk.
It's our choices, y'all. We have the power to choose, the greatest power. And the one thing that God said he would never take away from us is our free will. He's not talking about our freedom to go and do wrong. He's talking about our ability to choose. Behold, I set before you deaf and evil, good and good and deaf and evil, life and good. Choose life. I'm gonna
Mm.
put it all out there before you. You're gonna encounter all of it. Make the choice to live. Make the choice to live. That's my word of power this year.
Amen. I appreciate you. That listen, you guys, we've had Pastor Marvin McKenstry Jr. He is the senior pastor of Victory House Worship Center, the host of the Chop Shop every Thursday on Facebook, and just a dynamic young, what's the word? Theologian?
Theologian,
Theologian. Let me get it right. Theologian. So, and your handle on Instagram is
urban theologian.
Urban Theologian.
If you ever see any of my messages online, I literally, God has gifted me to see the Bible in the urban context because that's where I'm called to serve. I ain't worried about what nobody else do, but He called me and gives me the ability to literally see and understand his words, the stories, and a lot of the historical context and how it applies to what we know as the urban community today.
Mm. Listen, Pastor, we gotta go because yeah, I tell you, there go them paragraphs. But you're amazing. Listen, you got to come back. We got to do this again.
Anytime. And you
I
got to return the favor.
Yeah, of course, anytime, anytime. I love to come on a chop shop. Right? You're doing big things over there. You know that'll be an honor. But yeah, listen. Have a good night. Thank you so much. Can we get some deuces up? We boxed up and out.
Thank you.
That's right. Peace. Good night, Black
Peace.
Boxers. Don't go nowhere, Pastor Marvin.